Valentina Shevchenko. Hold on. Alexa Grasso rematches Valentina Shevchenko in her first defense of the flyweight title this weekend. Earlier this year, Grasso got the surprise victory over Shevchenko to win the title from her. And that's the matchup that you can mostly reference in this fight, and actually will be the main reference point for my breakdown here, or my prediction for this fight, with some brief references to two other Valentina Shevchenko fights. So what went wrong for Shevchenko that last time was something quite simple from Alexa Grasso, which is Shevchenko, for the most part, fights out of southpaw. It's kind of got quite a square southpaw stance. And if you were to sort of pick her key weapon, it's the kick, the southpaw kick from the rear leg, either slamming into the body and then using that to set up to go high. As you know from the famous Jessica Eye fight, please excuse the seagulls you could potentially hear, I do live on the south coast of England. Now, what Grasso did to negate Shevchenko's main weapon, which is that kick, and also the right hand hook, being her most damaging shots, either starting or ending combinations, was that she fought southpaw. She just fought southpaw. And why is that so effective? Is because basically it stops the kicks from the sort of open side that you get from a southpaw orthodox in a Shevchenko matchup, slamming into the body and then going up top. Grasso in that fight did a very clever thing, which was actually to offer up her lead leg to be kicked. But Shevchenko didn't really go for that, because obviously knowing that for her to land that kick with the left leg from southpaw up against another southpaw, that actually means that Grasso is pretty much in jabbing range. And if she checks that kick, she will be set and ready to then land a jab 1-2 combo from there, whilst you're then resetting back into position. Because Shevchenko, for the most part, when she throws the left kick, doesn't then use that to then switch into the orthodox stance. It normally then goes all the way back, and then she's back into southpaw. To really throw that well as well for Shevchenko, she would probably have to be a little bit more bladed. But Grasso kind of squared her up as well, and she did that through feints, feinting the jab, feinting a sort of push kick with the right leg, and feinting sort of takedown motions. Grasso didn't really commit to any takedowns in that fight, apart from in the, of course, infamous ending now of that fight. Yeah, I mean, if I look here, yeah, Grasso gets 0 for 2 on takedowns. Yeah, wasn't a huge part of her game plan, other than feinting it, and then pretty much just through 1-2 combos. She's got very pretty boxing, very strong, solid boxing, and Grasso, I think, would be a more renowned name in mixed martial arts if she just had a bit more power on her shots. It's obviously not there, so instead she's just got really strong, competent technique. I think that's going to be the issue that I have here for Shevchenko as well, because if you look at the finishing sequence when she goes for the spin kick, doesn't have the pace on it. Now, obviously, admittedly, it was in round 4 of a fight, so obviously taking a bit of a beating. I had Shevchenko up 2-1 going into that. It was in the 4th round, wasn't it, that she got the finish? Yeah, round 4. I had her up 2-1 going into the 4th. But, it wasn't a great Shevchenko performance. It was fine. And I thought she was actually struggling quite a bit with Grasso. I think what will be interesting here is to see if Shevchenko will add anything to her repertoire. And it's something that I harp on a bit, maybe a bit too much for some people, but I think age is quite an interesting thing to look at, considering that Shevchenko now is 35 years old. She's got 27 pro MMA fights, and then just a load of Muay Thai fights. Just so many Muay Thai fights beforehand. And, you know, that can wear on the body. That can take a lot out of you. And I wonder if she can add a dimension into this to improve the result for her. Another move, that sort of spin kick, and then the back take that we got from Grasso was very impressive. But another move from Shevchenko that we see was the head and arm throw, which, you know, is like, imagine you were putting someone into like a sort of bulldog. You're doing the running bulldog in, you know, mid-90s WWF. Got the headlock. And then you just sort of hit a Ushimada, where you get the sort of like leg across the body to then get the trip. And you do the head and arm throw. And normally you land quite high on the chest, but it puts you in a sort of strong position on the ground. But then you've got to sort of like swivel your hips back, down across the mat and then across the body. Almost like, imagine Shevchenko's got the head and arm lock. Person's sort of on their back side, hip area. She then has to almost like scuttle her legs down to the mat, down back across, and then get into mount or half guard from there. It's not a way I would recommend to take people down, because it kind of could actually put you into an awkward position, which is what happened here. And in the Tyler Santos fight, where she goes for it, messes it up, mistimes it, and ends up getting her back taken. Now, the back take in Grasso fight didn't lead to the finish. That was off the court kick, or the spin kick. But in the Tyler Santos fight, gave Tyler Santos an entire round, in which Santos got very little striking damage off, and actually Shevchenko landing over her head onto Santos. Admittedly, Santos did win the round because of that control position that she got from the messed up head and arm throw. But I think that the sort of messed up spin kick, the messed up head and arm throw, maybe shows a drop in her physicality, maybe shows that she perhaps doesn't have the physical skills to do these moves late into fights anymore. Which also coupled with the fact that she's been at the top, this competition that's been chasing her for ages. And they've got a lot of tapes to study on her. There's a lot that they can study on Valentina Shevchenko. And if you look at the Tyler Santos fight, you look at the Alexa Grasso fight, and then you compare it to the Jessica I one, or, you know, even the Jędrzejczyk one for the Flyweight title, like, Shevchenko's flying around the cage. She's like, you know, it's like a fly, just sort of like zipping and zooming around the cage, and it was, you know, an impressive zippy performance. Whereas these last two, she has looked laboured at points. You know, and really, when I think about what Grasso has to do in this fight, she doesn't really have to do a hell of a lot more. You know, I think she just has to avoid any takedowns from Shevchenko, which, you know, when you've got the southpaw combo, she's got the ability to potentially take her down, be really close in on her legs. The knee up the middle from Grasso may not be there from there, and she can get in low on the hips and low on the knee, and her head out the side, without there being much of a sort of defensive movement from Grasso, or an attacking movement from Grasso to then deter her from that takedown. So I have to think that Grasso's probably seen that, because she got the sub finish from the tape study, from the spin kick, and you saw her training that before in the lead up to the fight. So she's obviously done the study, or her coaches have done the study. So they must have done from there. I think a teep to the front leg would be a great move for Grasso, or like the Bobby Knuckles blitz stomp. I love that move. The Robert Whittaker stomping, leaping stomp. Obviously, the problem with that, it brings you into punching range, but I don't think of Shevchenko as a huge puncher. And then also, if you throw that stomp and you miss it, actually kind of just brings you into range. It's almost like a blitz in that you can then throw a sort of right hook off of that. So I think it's quite clear that, there's my doubts that Shevchenko has added anything to her game, combined with Grasso's ability to add to her game and to adjust to her opponent to cause her problems. The switch to southpaw, the back attack from off the spin kick. Maybe Shevchenko thought she could just play the greatest hits and get out of there. Obviously didn't work. That is why I've gone for a Alexa Grasso decision win. It's hard, man. Like, people do age out of fighting. They really do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is the natural progression. It is the natural thing that happens. I know there's some fighters like, well, I just want to fight a legend on my way out. Two old guys going at it. I appreciate that to a certain extent. However, not everyone deserves that, and particularly if it's someone who's fighting at the top in the title realm area. Definitely not. So the official, hold on, I'm talking brother, prediction for Joe Greenwood, and because he's not here, Tom now as well, I will speak on his behalf, is a Alexa Grasso decision victory.